ABBA 3. October 28, 2018. ABBA, ABBA greet each, in the heart of the heart. Install us a moment in the silence, so that everyone can welcome and accommodate in the same evidence and the same lightness. Silence. Beloved, so let's just continue our exchanges and our communion through your stories, your questions, and queries. I invite each of you, first of all, to welcome in its totality and in its truth. Beloved, so I'll let you speak to start talking. I'll start with a testimonial. For a few months I perceive this permanent or virtually joy. I feel so good in myself and in life, more and more myself, and more serene, making more and more confidence in life. In recent days, with the energies of the moment, if I can say, I feel it constantly back and forth, good bad, with my person, my character, who tries to take over, so basically I know very well, enjoy. Beloved, I give thanks to your words. However, what happens for a few days, as you reported, and as many of you live, it does exist, or there may be a feeling and an experienced extremely rapid oscillation leading you, indeed, the joy to the person. As you say so, it is seen, it is perceived that you cannot see. And I can only invite you to ever leave joy, not to interest you in what comes from the person, allowing it and letting it drain and magnify, through your fire of love. There you simply must watch what happens, even if it is unpleasant and just in the next moment, to put yourself in the present moment, without asking and expecting nothing, so the miracle of joy you seize again without any difficulty. As had been announced, and as it is lived so more and more pregnant, you see all certainly differing intensity and scales too, as there are elements within the ordinary life this world that seem to change, disintegrate, or change. You see these moments of joy that take you to the punch, or which are established for longer periods. It is precisely here, too, at the world screen, this double contradiction, or this double contrast between the apparent chaos and inner joy. It is the same for the person who lives, I would say, his last moments of struggle, these moments of resistance before capitulating in the intensity of the light, at the collective level. So there should not be alarmed. There is in you and in each of you, the same mark. This benchmark is that of joy, or at least of peace and serenity, and which now begins for many of you to live as ecstasy, or as I said, as bliss. Do not worry about anything. You can recognize the one and the other, the moments and the times when joy is present, and the moments or times when the person is trying to regain some control whatsoever. I remind you that even in this you have nothing to take, if not to play in a way, as you say in your testimony, the role of the observer, who now is nothing but your eternal eye that knows no movement and remains motionless. The same fixity of the observer, coming to see both joy that the person to action in recent inclination to control, can only pass. If you adopt this conduct, you will see, in the moment, the disappearance of which made resistance, apparent obstacle, or simply residual habit of living in this world. You can see more and more often, and I think the evidence will be countless in this sense, to progressively days, not ABBA but you, about your experience or laughter, joy, lightness, serenity, and bliss. It is as if you actually retrovise what you had forgotten, that we had forgotten, and which now appears in full. As it was said, joy, ecstasy, intasy, peace take all spaces, so more and more prevalent in your life, in order to restore you to life. This is happening right now. This will unfold, so more and more intensive and increasingly visible. No obstacle can stand, nor individually or collectively, to the intelligence of the light. This, now, is progressing so more and faster, in linear terms, in a more and more extensive in space run. Beloved, we can continue, if you do not mind, with for now, the other evidence before moving on to questions. This is a second witness. This morning, Sunday, while I was taking breakfast while listening to the first message of this session with ABBA, in the final minutes, in silence, here, in this home of the moment, the legs began to vibrate. This vibration is mounted to the heart and is expanded, the head thrown back, open mouth, eyes closed, the time stopped. Sounds like a whisper have filled the ears, tears flowed, sounds came out of my mouth in a gentle complaint, unspeakable joy filled me and I welcomed this blessed time. I was not here, but I was there to enjoy this divine nectar, and I stayed like that for a moment before continuing breakfast, smiling in joy. What a gift to start the day well. I am here with you all. I thank everyone. Thank you. Beloved, we are all with you individually and collectively. I give thanks to your testimony, and I want also to state a number of elements. It is indeed not to award ABBA outside, which takes place in you in relation to this joy, listening to my words. Because my words are not only your words, but they are also the words that resonate with you, whatever your language and whatever the meaning of my words. There is no question here of a vibratory aspect, or a light appearance. I prefer to recall the term common resonance, making you discover yourself, discovering you discover me, and finding me, I find you. He is not here to find a master. It is not a question here of finding a student, but to get into the perfect resonance, on an equal footing, because you are just as ABBA me. The only difference may still exist, it is the intensity of this revelation and manifestations of this revelation, but as you will be more likely to see, even if you do not understand my words, in another language, which is French, whatever. What happens now is beyond vibration. This is more of a resonance and a match-up between the ABBA is expressed and the listener, which is exactly the same. There is only consciousness, we all ABBA. There is only ABBA. There is only consciousness. This is what you live and that you have shown impromptu this morning, whether listening to me, whether it's listening to you, whether in nature, be it in any what circumstances, because the circumstances are only pretexts now, full unveiling of the light, and above all, that you are beyond all identity, as any world. That's why you have that smile, the tears flowing, it's the full refresh for many of you, the oath and the promise without any prerequisites, without any prior knowledge, without any projection, simply by your welcome. Welcome, this is to be available. Greet is free the shackles of the last veils and last resistance of the ego, the person's habits, where you have other things to do than to let them pass, watching them if you want but you understand, without trying to interpret. As I said, the fate of the light is obvious. You have nothing to do, you just have to be and let be above all, what you are, beyond being. Thus being conjugates to non-being, and your lips flowered and flowered your eyes and flowered your heart. What now occurs in these days and in the days to come, will not as an experience but indelibly in your experience of the present moment. I assure you that this is true, you just dive back into inner silence, in this notion of hospitality and spontaneity and laziness, to observe the same smile that will bloom on your lips, your eyes and your heart. This is not related to ABBA, in any case the speaker, but it's related to ABBA you are, because there is no distance, there is more distance, because there is more separation, because there is the one, the unique. The updating of the oath and the promise ends with these accounts that will become more and more intense, as an extent of days. We need to find it no deity, no master, no guru. Do not see in me that the mere human, is human just like you and continues his path and human lives, along with you, total rediscovery, beyond all identity. I am the resonator or catalyst if you will, that simply, in this instance the words, beyond even their senses, as I said, just put in resonance intimate and ultimate party of your being which then flush to consciousness spontaneously. This is not related to my action now. This is related just to the resolution of the primary abnormality that is now several months ago after its resolution on a scale never reached, allowing many human beings, independently of me, to find ABBA, to find the oath and promise even before the collective event. The collective event which, as I said and suggested, is looming on the near horizon in linear terms. It is yours, if you like, watch what happens, whether indoors or out, because ultimately, you understand and live that there is neither inside nor outside, neither outside nor inside, but there is only truth. And that truth needs no world, no form, no time, no space, no conscience, and no questioning. So at that time, who lives already, you will find you, even if this condition disappears transiently because it can only reappear, will take you to see, in the functioning of your person, in this world, many changes to both the needs that behavior, the way of relating. The spontaneity will become natural. Truth will become natural, it will no longer be any compromise or any mask, nor the least role as you will be at that time in the truth, naked. The naked truth is the result of the intelligence of the light that traverses all of you, because beyond identity before losing any visual reference, that is to say the time being giving way to non-being and eternal bliss. At that time, being and non-being and come together in such moments, there cannot be any interest in anything illusory, for anything that happens. You are anchored to that time, here through the ephemeral and your eternity and your truth. This corresponds to the great emptiness, silence, where there is no need of vision or experience of consciousness, or even consciousness itself, or even vibration or even energy. Thus, this all is accomplished takes a very powerful figure, very present, and that takes you literally beyond concepts, beyond all resistance, as beyond all questioning. I give thanks for this second witness, so and we will listen and welcome the next. So it's not really a testimony. Rather it is a question, not a question. I have no other testimony. Then listen. Hello ABBA. I address this message to you on the night of October 26 to 27 because I feel distressed. Knowing that 132 days were finishing had given me such joy, that my disappointment is immense. I thought we were finally live the apotheosis of the planet grid, we would be delivered from our bark. Perhaps I did not understand at the end of time scenario. Anyway, I cannot let me pass through the darkness of the heart came over me. I do not have enough courage to even consider living for days and days on earth. How to get through this? I feel helpless. More lightness sounds. I feel even more in the background, the joy that yet inside me for months. Thank you for your presence, that you can hear me already a great help to me. Beloved, I explained this morning during satsang, what is happening now, the dates, there is more to look for, you said yourself, actually, the 132 days are up. The only change in the program that had been announced, it is the fact that we have lived, so more and more extensive, even before the event, the resurrection. The resurrection should occur, depending on the program and the plan established the intelligence of light, after the process called stasis. So you are carrying and you became alive, but nevertheless, you know, and you say so, your body and this world is still there. It is therefore necessary to compose, not making efforts, but accepting, as you said, to cross this feeling of despair at the end of a date, which is nevertheless well placed. The apotheosis is experienced, and I will point out that the climax is not in connection with the event. The apotheosis is now live. It will end, indeed, at the time of the event. The event is on your doorstep. When I say at your door, it is not a question of years. These days, hours, weeks, months, no one knows. And it was during this time that he must give thanks, and thanks to still be in the plan, to allow countless brothers and sisters to live this joy. As I also said, the oscillations become increasingly visible and perceptible. While the problem is identifying the person, and you say, and you now live. That's okay. It is simply a time to go, as you say you do not manage to cross. So let yourself go through, simply decides nothing. Accepts and welcomes. Do not try to eliminate the black of your heart. Do not think of joy, he seems to have lost you, remains motionless, silent, demand nothing, expect nothing, and let be what you are, that has nothing to do with how you feel, in that you describe. But the intelligence of the light knows what is suitable for everyone, because you are also the intelligence of light, even though sometimes it seems you will be enlightened, even though sometimes it seems you enter, not in anger but in despair, creating, at the same desperation it is not sustainable, this tension towards the abandonment, which will lead you to let joy reappear again. What was once lived in relation to this joy and this fire of the heart, or the heart upward, will never go away. It is the same, at the opening of what was called the chakras, that's a long time when the sheath of chakras has been perforated, they could never be closed. It is the same for joy. Just having lived once, even if today it seems to you to be removed, it is simply because you actually look, and let you through, just that and nothing else. Thus, you will also become accustomed to seeking a date to search for events. Take care of dates if you are interested, about the unfolding events in the illusion. But the meeting of the illusion of eternity, in this collective event and the final event, cannot be your safe conduct. It's a certainty. It is obvious. There is neither delay nor haste. There is simply an intelligence of the light that is at work, and that is more intelligent than they mean the old, the stars, because they themselves did not know the date. We knew, indeed, the one and the other, the purpose of it taking place, since everything is accomplished. It simply remains for us to walk again on the time clock, the steps necessary to accompany the light and accompany the brothers and sisters in their discovery of themselves. Whether it is through words, by silence, it goes through the music, for art, for all that may come to you in the moments when you are in joy, does ultimately no difference, for the result is always the same, to magnify the joy and especially to exercise and demonstrate the contagion of joy. Regarding ecstasy and bliss, too, they will become contagious. Contagion I'm talking to now, exactly, in other words, I could have answered one of the previous testimony. It is not I who do it, it's not that you do. It's the fact that we are both in silence and hospitality, which reveals the truth, and nothing else. If you are able to do this, one-on-one, face-to-face with yourself, then you will live the same way. This will reinforce your feeling and your experience of being beyond the form, and simply be the bare joy and be ABBA, beyond all identity. The oscillations are going to last, they will be increasingly short, despite their intensity. These oscillations will lead you to see in the space of a few hours or a few days, the predominance of joy, what you have experienced dark a few minutes before, or hours or days before. It should not be alarmed by this, especially at collective level. Collective ascent was engaged here a long time, individual ascension happens now, and that in this process of individual ascent, a number elements can be present in consciousness. It is neither relapse nor error, nor fault, nor of any responsibility, but this is the game of the collective light that impacts you at the individual level. A few days ago, a number of emotions were released to the human collective level of consciousness of Gaia. You have all participated, regardless even of your own consciousness, to metabolize these emotional elements related to the solar plexus. Among the sensitive of you, many of you, even without any previous problem, to feel this heaviness or discomfort that the solar plexus. It was enough simply, you'll know for next time, because there will be others, that when you feel that stuff, especially, do not interpret, do not analyze, do not question, put involved in the moment, enjoy and let it pass through. Quite naturally, to the sensitive, you feel the energy flow, the flow of vibration and flow of light, which were painful to the solar plexus, back through your heart to the throat. Again, at the throat, many of you have found, and, indeed, for many, many years, there are many passages taking place at the laryngeal chakra. It is the same for elimination, this time collective, but passing through yourself, and your being, that can metabolize emotions generated by the chaos. This is the accompaniment by your presence, accompaniment by your joy, for this epidemic is happening and that is confirmed every day a little more, helps tremendously and dampens the shock of humanity. I can only repeat that the intelligence of the light knows the timing and conduct of each of the minute steps each, as the entire group, as well as interactions between all consciences present on earth. It is this alchemy then, which will greatly speed up the process, it is this alchemy there despite your swings, which will magnify joy and deploy more, both you, individually and collectively. There can be no other alternative. There can be no mistake. There can be no delay. The important thing today, and I repeat it again, regardless of the urgency of the collective event, is not so much the event itself, but the resurrection as you live, because everything is content. The oath and the promise, of course, but the revelation not only of the elements of consciousness that is attenuated and away from you, even multidimensionality, putting you naked and to metabolize past habits related to this world, collective as individually, but through you. Everything is perfect. Of course, one that is at times of low not seen perfection. But looking around, he sees that it is spreading, through and through, step by step, whether by your virtual means, even, whether in your family, at the other end of the planet. What takes place at the chaos, whether collective or oscillating chaos that some can live at times, does not matter, because you've experienced the joy that you had lived and that seems to stop for some hours or days, can only reappear. There is no alternative either. Just be careful not to react as in the old days, not working, systematically, in action-reaction. Remember, the moment you've experienced joy, if only a few minutes, the unit is there, even if you experience duality. It is then up to you, all of you, let metabolize this antagonism, this apparent paradox. And I assure you that here too, behind that there is joy, there is the ecstasy, there is only bliss. Touching the stage of ecstasy and bliss, then you conscienticize, if I can say that you are not the conscience and that you are independent of it. At that time, joy will never disappear, even at the time of the oscillations. You may be able to feel the movement of the vibration and the light coming in slightly heavy locations in amount naturally at the heart, and evacuating. You have nothing to do, even at this level. And you'll see very quickly. And when you see the efficiency and intelligence of the light, you will agree. And you can only stop any effort to anything about who you are. You're really at the junction of being and non-being. It is not forbidden, even in these times of low, as you say, to call ABBA, in you. You're not obliged to put the shape of the speaker simply put in you, which in fact, is just back yourself, by yourself, in the heart of the heart. Thought, light follows thought, is the principle of the Christ matrix. It is obvious that if by living these moments of despair, anger, or spite, compared to 132 days that are gone, it is yours to take with you, not to feed it. But remember, at that time, not going to look in the past, but by reactivating yourself, without asking anything, think joy in the heart, and the light will follow your thinking. See, is that simple? But do not think that you have and which only pass in these moments there. Adopt this strategy and you will only be filled. Silence. The end of history, personal as humanity, as the creation, reveals in you, which was explained at great length, conscious CO creation. So what are you aware of that CO creation? Use your thinking. Not to call, not to ask. It is not a question of prayer, it is to be in the home. This is welcome and being. At that time, the word joy enough to reinstall it in the heart, without difficulty. But for that, we must not give weight to what is heavy. We must give weight to what seems to have disappeared, and yet is still there. It is just the view, the location of your conscience makes you think that this has gone, that makes you believe that you are wrong. This can never last. From the moment you experience these oscillations, you'll very quickly, the solution. I gave one, there may be others, but you will find them spontaneously, from the moment you do not regimbez, as soon as you do not fall back into old patterns of operation, related to world that goes out where you had to react. The world of joy, the world of love beyond the form, is not a world of causality, is not a world of reaction, that is a world of pure joy, which is not a world elsewhere. This is not a space, not time. Only joy. You've lived through moments at times for several months, as stated in this questioning, whatever. When something threw you, let it through, think only of joy, not think about anything else. Not to ask, because if you put it some distance, but just think joy, and nothing else. Think love, no concept other than pure thought. At that time, and then thinking the center of your chest, the heart of the heart, as it was named, then you will live, and so more and more secure. Again, I cannot convince you, it's up to you to convince yourself. And this can only convince you, because it cannot be otherwise. If not today, tomorrow it will be as you live. But we must above all avoid giving weight to an emotion or a mental state that passes. Otherwise, what's going to happen? As the body of flesh and the person is still there, even if it is released from itself, by the light, you will give density to what is being precisely lose its density, even in the intensity that you live in this low. There is neither low nor high, there are only permanent balance. Only the immanence. Only the heart of the heart, where there are more people, where there is no vision, where there are only joy, who has need no support. Your home. In this, you are only tenants in everything that happens. You are owners of joy because you are joy and is the eternal that I see, and that lives. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. The same kind of question, so I think you have answered, but I say it anyway. Better to ask it anyway. That is, for ABBA, we live 132 days. So, can you tell us when the course will be held, the event? Thank you. Beloved, the event as it is appointed will happen when it has to happen. It is imminent, I said, and I repeat, in terms of hours, days, weeks, or even months. But that's all. The important thing is not it. The important thing is the joy and resurrection, because the more you'll be joy, you will live longer and you approach ecstasy, even at times, and you will experience the bliss, the more you will attract, collectively, the event. You know, I said, there are countless factors that interact with each other in this meeting, in that it occurs. You are one of these elements. And the more you will be close to ecstasy and bliss, the more you see the chaos that grows outside, and you will find that your joy and your light progressing. This is by pressing it without asking you and expecting nothing, you overres workshops of decreation, the workshops of life, and not otherwise. Your only course of action, so to speak, is precisely not to act and let the intelligence of the light act. It will do much better than you, better than any therapist, and much better than ABBA. Because by accepting this, you accept the sacrifice and you accelerate the sacrifice itself, which is also a moment of joy and not pain. Besides, we have not yet evidence in relation to this, because it just happened for 2 days, but you'll see, every day, there are more and more brothers and sisters who cannot stop laughing and can no longer stop smiling, who cannot stop singing, that cannot stop creating, as if a new life actually crossed you. And what goes through you, is only the intelligence of the light, that of your heart for eternity, that of your heart of hearts, that of ABBA that you are, that brings you all that is necessary to carry out what is happening to himself, even if it's thanks to you. But not by you that this happens. But you participate. And not even by me, nor by the earth, nor by Nibiru or even by the bad guys, but simply the result of all these interactions. You are one of the elements of this interaction, and today I can tell you, even if there is nothing to do, it is your responsibility to accept this do nothing and let the intelligence of the light do. If you accept that, with honesty and sincerity, then you will be at the gates of bliss. You will become blessed, you will not be affected by any element of illusion. Without escape your life, but you have become life, much more than your life. At that time, as have recited countless mystical, among the old and among much safer stars, merely tag that you are experiencing. You have the same purpose that Ananda Maya Ma, you have the same purpose as a Rumi, a Osho, since you are ABBA. And that apart joy, that apart from evidence, there is nothing else. And this is sufficient in itself. Thus you will discover the illusion of creation. This is how you discover and battle chimeras, thoughts, insularity, in short, all the degraded conditions of life on earth, which was anything but life, but the amputation of life. While on earth, actually, and you had maybe a chance to meet, there are nature peoples who, despite the confinement of the earth, have not experienced this confinement, and especially level of the elves. This was explained at great length. But today, remember especially that whatever experiences that are still livable, whether in nature, to the peoples of nature, meditation, if you will, with crystals, if you want, whatever, the important thing is not there. These are just excuses, these are just crutches, until joy is such that nothing can emerge other than joy. At that time, it will be bliss and will be eternal, and that actually coincide, the return of the event. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. This is a question of a brother of Brazil. Jesus said, "You know the truth, and the truth will set you free," but we are at the end of the apocalypse and the revelation of truth was not held. Manipulators of humanity are still in power. These negative forces, will they be removed from the earth before the big event? Beloved, they were removed, long time. What remains? Simply, its habits, operating mechanisms that rotate somewhat freewheeling, memories, ghosts. All this is not true. The truth is revealed, it continues every day. We are indeed, as you said at the end of the apocalypse, revelation. Christ had said, "Nothing that was hidden you will remain hidden." This is indeed the case. But this, the light has come, not according to an established plan, as it was announced you, but involving the resurrection. Within this resurrection, as we have said, there are only joy. Joy comes to cover everything. So perhaps, that for you, you expect too much this revelation on the outside, rather than live inside. Because above all, the revelation is the revelation of who you are beyond any form, as conscientiously. That is the miracle, through this body, and precisely through this world that still seems you standing, but so little. There are only appearances that take, through lies, through which still tries to be concealed and suppressed. But of course, nothing can now choking, camouflage or hide the light. Break the habit of seeking an event before, but live the event. Some of you have lived, whether in dreams, whether in premonition, by intuition, or through vibration, a feeling of impending death, at the heart of the black hole, with the sense of starting. At that time joy is there. In fact, the revelation is not the revelation of the story. This was told to you by countless voices, by former countless stars, by members of the Intergalactic Confederation of Free Worlds. But all that is over. You only see the remnants and leftovers of what standing habit, and not by food. So do not worry about that. But the most important revelation is not the revelation of falsification or confinement. It is the revelation of what you are. Because the revelation of what you are, beyond any form, terminates any story, as any world. Truth is something very dangerous. Truth ends the world. And you live. So let this world die without too much feed. Leave this world die by accompanying laughter and joy, and joy. Do not worry about anything else. Forget any prior art. Forget even the course of history, because there is more history that takes. Forget dates, because joy there is no date. And in bliss, he cannot even exist any time or any space. In this beatitude, the person being what it is today compared to even a few years ago, work was completed well for everyone. You have nothing else to take. We repeat the way more and more extensive, until you live it. So at that time, having lived, you will find that you cannot ever live oscillations, and the joy of eternal remains so, whatever the events of your body or this world. You will then officially record it in you, and you live in Christ's words, you are in this world but you are not of this world. And I would even say that you are no world. Beyond stellar origin, beyond creation, you are older than this. And you will always be there at the end of creation. That's the truth. All the rest are merely historical truths that no longer apply to this absolute truth. I invite you to live and nourish it, and a little less there also nourish the eyes of the world, especially regarding human folly. But you many signs that are present and available to everyone, be it in the elements of the earth, by the action of cavalry, as was explained many times by Star's sisters, particularly Native American, of look at the sky because there too many items were donated by all the prophets, all the seers at all times and in all places, and this is taking place right now. So, yes, the truth is, yes, the truth is revealed. But the only truth, so to speak ultimate or absolute, is relative, actually, with the final event, or group event, if they are spouses, regardless. The final event, has already lived in many brothers and sisters, regardless of dates, regardless of the time. These brothers and sisters, who now live bliss, cannot be altered by any part of the world. Whatever the heaviness of your life, or the weight of your life, or the life where you are, you will notice at that time, that even this may not bother you, or keep you from being what that you are. At that time, joy is replaced by bliss, the silence, where no words are necessary, where no justification can be applied, where everything is perfect. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. Another question. In all of the information you provided, Biddy, Mary, the stars, Amram, Brother K, etc., speak of the shock rising to all humanity the time comes. Can you, please, indicate something else about it? What would be the key that will allow us to surpass, and it will happen there also in all the worlds? This is a brother or sister in Italy. No one, I mean no one, and I repeat, cannot escape this event. You have to guard against in any way. Especially not by any preparation, place, food, or protection. Certainly not by elements from your person. But simply hosting, abandoning, and letting you be what is already there. This is your best way to be ready for the event. At the time of the event, that you had been explained at length, there will be no identity. There will be no world. You will be in that kind of stasis, as it was named, but the fact of the joy that was experienced since the beginning of the ascent December 14, 2017, will give you life something more closer, not the disappearance, but much of bliss, in its noblest definition. Stasis itself will become so beatitude collective. Quite simply, because the primary defect has been removed, simply because the climb started here many months, and you are at the end of this form of gestation, so to speak. Do not look for the day, do not look now, I said yesterday, because you're right into it. And every day is the day for the individual event, as a collective. Bend over you. Lean you. Everything else is actually done alone. You have nothing to anticipate, nothing to prepare, if not the most of that let the intelligence of the light shows you let go, even if it must be by the disappearance of joy, temporary. Because bliss is behind just after. Silence. I take this opportunity, for all siblings that followed elsewhere or not as you say, all this information that has been conveyed, and it was not that information was above all an experience, but nevertheless carries information, it is today not to refer to any past whatsoever. Of course, and you see your heavens, the intergalactic confederation is closer to its tangible and visible event. Of course, the appeal of Mary is always at your door. All that has been said, all that has been lived, all that was given as information is strictly true. Besides, I said, you just have to look on what has been said, perhaps it was 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and you will find exactly and precisely what you are going through right now. You then look at this not as a way to turn you, but somehow as a confirmation, a markup that you have to live now. But go to the essentials. And the bottom line is let go. Accept cross, accept whatever happens, and joy will be there. And just behind, ecstasy and bliss. You have to worry about anything else, except that the life in this world may still ask you to respect the commitments you have made. But I warn you, as soon as the bliss you will hit, you cannot deal in any way with this world. This is why it is preferable that the bliss touches you, bit by bit, rather than abruptly. For here, too, as soon as you experience the joy, as several months ago, and from the moment you live this beatitude, then at that time, you did work, recognizing you, and let remove that which is no longer recognized, and has more reason to be on this world as everyone else. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. Another question, will we release our carbon material, which make us suffer a lot before the big event, and how? Thank you for the answer. It would be desirable for each of you, to remain until the event. Thank you not to leave the final scene. You deserve every one of you applause. And if there are more spectators will applaud? You see? So do not be in a hurry to lose your body. For every body will be lost. Even eternity of the body. That will come in time. This is now, I said, but not ahead of the call, not ahead of time. Be in the tempo of the moment and nothing more. Light takes care of everything, because that's what you are. And not what you believe, not what you're going through this body. And I repeat, if the bliss which is nevertheless a landmark for you, and for each of you, not if you do not live, but even through the experiences your brothers and sisters who will testify so more and more natural, too. What you want to do you biting bloods because you do not live yet. Or rather, simply, read, listen, attend these brothers and sisters, called ABBA Live Bliss, just to be there and resonate with them. There is nothing else to do. Everything else is done alone. The disappearance of this world, as the disappearance of any illusion of creation. Silence. And again, I repeat, it is not prohibited either, if you feel the need to use the tools of old, whether chemical, whether all said energy technologies, whether all the products that exist on this earth. There are no contraindication to this as your body is there. But all bodies disappear. And the more you observe around you, even if you do not live, brothers and sisters in bliss, the more you see, again, a form of change, unheard. Bliss is the prerogative of what was called, in all traditions, holiness. This holiness is not a game, a suit, or a role. That is to say that in this period so special, each of you is a star, each of you is an old one, each of you is primordial ether, each of you is Mary, and ABBA, since each of you is the whole and each part can be it all. But it is no use to identify you or rely on any of these resonances. Most resonances, it is that which is beyond archetypes. Today, beyond ABBA, bliss. And just by listening, reading, or seeing some brothers or sisters certain, blissful, you can do that yourself become blissful. Bliss is not only contagious, epidemic or pandemic. It is immediate. This will perhaps seem a dream for now, but many of you, I know, since yesterday have lived. Simply remote listening, live or delayed, they found themselves in this beatitude, without being able to explain it. And this, you will live, and you'll live to do it without even decide not wanting to, without calling you, you will see that thinking about someone, it will end in bliss. But if this movement is very fast, so for you, that's a tempo far about the event. Because, the more you get closer, in terms I speak this time of hours and days, not weeks and months, the more you will see, even if you do not live, you have to more and more brothers and sisters who express each with their words, this bliss. Bliss cannot be compared to joy, whether internal or external joy, pointless joy, joy naked as we said, because bliss is the attribute of holiness. And holiness is accompanied by countless charisms that have no possible relation to the powers of the soul. The main charisma is the possibility, for the intention only, by thought, to be effective. Bliss, if you prefer, another octave of joy, will take you to those who live before the event, and at the latest at the time of the event, during the stasis, will regain a taste for life and disgust deeper, more visceral I would say, to the world, not to flee, but because you will see the raw truth. This truth does not need vision. It is above all an impression in your consciousness, the impression I eternal, who is the observer, I remind you, now. At that time you will know that you are extremely close in terms of time of hours or days of the event. The trappings of course, it was said to you and this is confirmed every day, climatic, geophysical, astronomical events, related to the intergalactic confederation also will become increasingly, intrusive, we can tell. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. Hello ABBA and all. Very happy to join you. I go back and forth between a consciousness and the person, why? I would stay in the a consciousness. Could you enlighten me on this? Thank you with all my love. Beloved, I seem to have responded early to this question. And I told you also that there would be a lot of questions about that. I can only answer you. Put me the precise question for me to repeat the same verb. I go back and forth between a consciousness and the person, why? I would stay in the A consciousness. As long as you want, you will not be able to. Do not want nor desire, we must welcome. See the difference in orientation of energy and thought between wanting and welcome. Everything flows from there. The will is turned outwards. It is the will, volition. The reception is turned inward. It's as simple as that. Replaces the word I want to I welcome, and you will live. As for the why, I have sufficiently explained to me it seems, through previous answers. It has also, through this shift has between consciousness and the person or between the multidimensionality and the person, a kind of consummation, which will result in there as a form of RASLE ball, or I have fed up, as was said before, this friction will then get even closer. Provided also where you were not looking for why and you cross it. Because the why always corresponds to a causality. Light is not causation, it predates all causality. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. What can match does having more and more need a lot of nothing. This corresponds to the emergence of bliss. It needs nothing and nothing much is not a withdrawal from life, but return to life. This is a withdrawal from your life and return to life. And this takes place precisely at the moment. That is to say, you will see not a nuisance, but really, the actual feeling and practical, and it is expressed not need really and concretely, nothing. It is not a word game. Because you are nothing and therefore you may not need anything. This is how you discover that you are the whole. Not otherwise. This has been said and I repeat, you cannot be everything, before they were nothing. Nothing, in other words, is sacrifice. But softened sacrifice in its formulation and in its presentation to each of you, just by the arrival of bliss. Again, do not expect before the event even if you are in joy, all absolutely live this beatitude. I did say and I repeat. By cons, you will notice if you do not live around you, in testimony, in questioning, in what is happening even with strangers who are already bliss. In the same way you saw the joy, the smiles, who roamed your life the moment you yourself were in joy, the effectiveness of your joy on human brothers and sisters. It will be the same for bliss, and it is already beginning to be the same. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. I lived naked love, but not multidimensionality. This is it became natural for us, and he will also be spontaneous. Beloved, multidimensionality is not the purpose. It was during a time the means of action in this world, to anchor joy, and to anchor the oath and promise. Now and again you will have countless questions about that. You have a lot of brothers and sisters who live the naked love, but without being passed through the multidimensionality or naked awareness. Whatever? Love naked us more than enough, since this naked love leads to bliss which ended any dream consciousness, even multidimensionality. It lacks you nothing. I would even say that for those of you who went directly to the person with the naked love, bypassing the multidimensional box or bare awareness, be blessed, because no trap has been put before you. You have no possibility of identification with an experience in the superconscious. You are therefore more free than those who lived elements within superconsciousness, because you cannot be attached to what you do not know and what you have not lived. Because you cannot resonate that you do not know. It's the same principle as the resonance ABBA. We all know and all ABBA. I speak not of the form, identity, but what precisely is earlier? Identity. This also means that things will become more and more simple on the screen of consciousness in a consciousness, since you live directly. You no longer need intermediaries or intermediate stages, or successive layers to pass, and no door to pass. You just have to be. And it is available, I repeat, everyone. From the moment there is no will. Because the results will always somewhere a will to power. But love knows no power. He only knows the truth. In power, there is no truth. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. This is a question on the moon. As for the moon, I think we would like to have details of what Ivanhoe told us, namely that it would be an artificial satellite brought there. Could it be said that it shelters entities, and if that's the case, are they a constitution similar to ours? Thank you. Beloved, creation is an illusion. I will answer based on your state today, and not according to what has been said the commander in 2015 or number of years ago. I will simply say that this world is illusion, Maya, it has no substance. So this satellite named object is made of matter, or is a scrap ship, does not matter in the end. It's not about the truth. This does not apply bliss. I can only invite you to not ask these questions, you've total freedom and flexibility, but simply not to dwell too much on these details because they will not bring anything to you live truth. Truth is triggered inside, it depends on no one. It does not depend, for example, whether the moon is full, or if it's an artificial satellite, because it will not change your experience. It will change your mind, nothing more. And this is of no interest. I'm not talking to the person, but now I address myself less and less often in person, but that you are. And you absolutely did not need this kind of information. The moon, we talked about earlier, was affected. Regardless of how it was affected. Of course, if one refers to the story that has been told about the origin of this world, and who accompanied you during all these years, it is clear then that is the archangel who Michael hit the moon. The moon is actually deeply connected to extraterrestrial peoples but above all in the astral illusion. Michael therefore hit the moon. Michael then hit Mars, and I would say the same. Either a meteorite or that this is a human action in any case, the result is the same. Silence. The only question that deserves an answer, and I would even say here in concepts and understanding, the word beatitude. Because this is not just a word reserved for saints. This is now something that is accessible to everyone. And you cannot doubt. Of course when you live, but even if you do not live, through countless testimonies. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. Yesterday you mentioned the timelines and said that some were offset. Could you elaborate, please? Beloved, the offset is constant. Each individual has his timeline. We said that the timelines were joined for the time zero. The zero time is on your doorstep. Stasis, bliss, the event. So the time frame, every one of you has a time frame of its own. But since the event is collective, it is not enough simply whether collective to every individual on the planet, but it is collective with all consciences. And that is what is happening. Therefore the time frames overlap. The time frame is simply the story you lived, and you have to live in this end time. Nothing more, nothing less. This does not call other explanation than that. Everyone follows his path, each opens its rhythm, everyone lives what he has to live according to the intelligence of the light. Nothing is late, nothing is ahead. Everything is in its right place, whatever the appearances and whatever your experiences. But if it is not available yet, you will see very quickly. And live it. Silence. Beloved, continue, if we have time. We still have time, yes, we still have time. So it's a brother or sister who has cats and speaks of her cats. Sometimes when I cuddle my cats, I have the feeling that I'm attracted, into an abyss, even dizzy. After, there are two other things. The gulf word actually invokes immediately dizziness. I much prefer the black hole, which can be scary but do not trigger vertigo. But there are actually in what you describe in contact with your cat, contact established beyond appearance and identity. The act of love, when you caress your cat, brought you to activate the black hole in you. The black hole at the heart of the heart, the center of the chest, where the torus emerges, double torus. Pursue. The other day one of my cats named Gabriel sat in front of me and started talking to me. No meowing, no talking to me. Only, I have caught nothing. This is the second. Beloved, even a goldfish can talk to you now. A blade of grass can talk to you. The sun can talk to you. This is not an illusion, it is the absolute truth. You are all in each other, not only in human consciousness. Each consciousness, even on this earth, is also in you. So the fact that there are more primary abnormality, resonance, and communication, which is not a relation but a resonance as I have previously defined, this resonance is a way of more natural, not just in the nature or the nature of nations, but also with your animals, but with anything or anyone. The black hole of sensation is the appearance of the black hole in yourself. You've been through all the said insulating layers, all of confinement layers, and you come in resonance, which shows you that there is no distance between one and the other. The important is not the words that have been spoken or heard, but the experience itself. You can communicate, resonate, and be everything. But I do suggest that being a thing is to be nothing. Because at that time, you will be just the start. In other words, never make fixing or on your person, or on any other person, nor on any of the characters in the story, whatever its real importance, because you have to go through this also. You cannot think any outside authority. And there is no savior, no savior. There is just the truth recovers. Do not turn away from the truth, and you imagine going or thinking he must go through Christ. Christ did not come to save you. Christ is the Christ matrix. It proved to you. If you expect to see some form a body of flesh, I think if the world went on, you could wait forever. Christ lives in you. The source when she was incarnated, you had said Babaji. He said, the Savior is up, wake him. I have told you, all of creation is in you. And you do not need to wake up all these archetypes, all these energies, all these consciences, but just to disappear from consciousness. To be nothing. And then you'll be all. But do not particularism or specificity as to what you live, or your beliefs in relation to such entity or that character, historic and important. Because you have them, and that's the truth. As long as you worship or while you are projected on an outside, even really a master, even Christ himself, you cannot be free. The only freedom depends on no one, neither of you, nor of those who created your form, or one who asked and trampled it's not the soil of Palestine. You see, this simplicity is definitely making the most fear to anyone, especially to spiritual people, because the truth is so simple that it cannot be associated with spirituality. Truth is so simple that it can be associated with any world. It is a truth that does not pass, the absolute truth, that of who you are beyond being, where there is no form, no savior, nor geneticists, mothers or Metatron, or source, and yet everything is included in this, and that's what you are. Immobility is important to take you effortlessly to the center of the center where the meeting be non-being. Everything else is done without you. Everything else is no one, especially not with a savior, especially not with a master, but in yourselves. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. There is still a small reflection on a cat. Yes. I fixed the wall a painting I did, Suri, another of my cats. I caught more than once on the table, looking at the painting and giving the impression that he wanted to get into it. What can you tell me about it, dear ABBA? Thank you so much. He wanted to get into it, laughs. The animals also live this form of reconciliation and love. No one is exempt from this love. Perhaps have you found in your pets, home, domestic, but also in nature. This is real. Animals as they are named, are also part of you, and to us, they are us. And besides at the time, it seems to me that the commander explained that animals were mere parodies of stellar lines. In this sense, you know that cats come from Sirius, the lions come from Arcturus, and the animals are a parody created by the archons, but endowed with consciousness and animated. They are in you, first of all, and they are as you. While grants the cat, without asking you questions, the same ability to resonate, as I described it to me and to all of you. Resonance is common. It is the resonance of what is called time zero. That is to say, the ultimate field, acausal, which returns you to information from time zero, which contains the totality of all time, in all areas, and all creation. I propose also to replace the term creation with the word created, the created. Because creating, you know, has its opposite, not the destruction but decreation. The setup is something which is officially recorded, and which is only passing. In creation, there are always stories. The old and the stars, and the Confederation told you in a true story, the story of this world, to enable you to find the thread, by the vibration of your consciousness, your superconscious, and finally hot wire, to find yourself in that person calls this emptiness and nothingness, even this shadow, but is that the truth of sublime creation, and before creation. You are therefore in the set, but you do need to create more nothing. The conscious co-creation, which is the expression of your love, is not a creation. It also participates in the lighting, the truth, and also to some extent to decreation. You go out all about you. To be empty. What this means anything, everything that needs to get out. Whether laughter, whether anger, whether dreams, you do not keep within you. And yet you have nothing to throw. You just have to let it be informed that the intelligence of the light illuminates to let him work in you, through you but not from you. Silence. Next to the truth, as you believe act for yourselves, you are not free. You are in consciousness, but you are not in the truth. He who is free does not act. It radiates and resonates, no intention, no free will. There is bliss. Can you commit to look towards some older like I said, and look what they wrote or experienced or witnessed, in these moments of bliss? Because it's the same thing. Even if the words are different, they merely reflect the same experience. As supraconsciousness manifested, you are subject to the conscience, the play of consciousness, experiences, stories, roles, functions, even within the freedom of free worlds. And freedom is not free worlds' freedom truth. Only bliss, beyond any form that delights you, beyond ecstasy and beyond the abode of supreme peace. At that time, you recognize as original light, in the primordial ether. You can no longer be deceived by any vision or any experience whatsoever. You will no longer be attracted some experience of consciousness, in a stratum whatsoever. You are complete. And this completeness, it can get nothing else, indeed joy, especially resonance and radiation, that of holiness. Everything else appears to you and you will appear as something so superfluous and so useless to so bulky. You will see as you were before, in the character, even light, even good in its obfuscation in its operating mechanisms, and you can laugh at yourself, for being thought to be the body and this life, for thinking have to evolve, or having to pay some karma whatsoever, or having to preserve any privilege whatsoever. You will be blessed. This is not a vague promise, this is not a hypothetical future, it's the truth that you begin to live, and it is the truth that is due to each. Because that's what you are. Despite confinement, he was never possible to force the consciousness to go beyond organic silence. The consciousness needs space, it needs freedom but not freedom. And indeed, the circumstances of this world become what they are, you can only see. So I see quite the notion of getting tired of being frustrated, oscillating between a consciousness and the person may seem in some cases exhausting. But I guarantee that bliss will end that, during the event at the latest, or already. But if it goes too fast, I talk about the intensity and number, then you will know that the stasis is at your door, the event also. This is for you, I can tell, your inner landmark, the needle of the meter that tells you where you are. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. There is more written questions and we have about 20 minutes. So beloved, this is your choice. Do you have any questions? There is a question. So we listen. Participant, well, I wanted to know what he is using the pendulum, tarot, numerology of. Is this something that, what is it for now, is that? That, find a little bit. Voice, our sister wants to know what is the pendulum, tarot, numerology of, its use, and what he is now. Beloved, the question does not arise today in terms of usefulness or uselessness. She is posed in terms of bliss. When joy is there, you are not really available to use a pendulum or tarot arcana. When bliss will be there, this question will make you smile yourself. Of course you can use whatever you want. Even the tools of the past. But the moment of bliss, once you have experienced it, you cannot watch or a clock, or a tarot card. This will seem so overwhelmed, so archaic and so tied to this world. What you call the symbolism is that the two different sides of the same coin, the coin of illusion. Then there diabole the demon and the symbolic. The demon separates the symbolic unit. But what unites? It separates what the demon? What is already separated and divided in this world. It also brings together in this world, but in this world. Everything you mention may have some utility, yes, in relation to this world, but not for what you are. That's the best answer I can give you. But there is no objection for anyone to use these means, I repeat, become archaic means. This is already the case for those in joy and who really live this naked love. But again, you do not impose restrictions and do as you feel it. But I can assure you that with the bliss or even ecstasy, there is no longer any desire, or be taught, nor read, nor use anything resonates with the invisible. Because the invisible became visible beyond the astral. When I say visible, it is not seen with the eyes, but rather an internal visibility. Silence. So I will answer, love and do what you like. Thank you. ABBA, thank you. Personally it makes me smile. But I know this is an issue that is important to some people who are not there. Voice. Personally it makes her smile, but she knows it's important to some people who are not there. Absolutely. And I said that there were no qualms about having to use the same chemistry, it's about this world. So far, indeed, it was certainly necessary to use intuition, its pendulum, the same thinking with respect to pollution of this world, at all levels. But today you are invulnerable, you are immune to it all. Because you are above it all, and very different from what you were in appearance. This time, a very long time indeed, the commander told you about the frog in its bowl, the water was heated. All that is over. Your sensitivity, even if you do not collect energy or vibration, is becoming thinner, it goes through all possible channels. But this sensitivity is not accompanied by weakness, except for those who still believe to be subjected to it, in their dreams or illusions, or their nightmares. But as soon as it is lived, then effectively you can only smile. Because tarot, pendulum, or any other instrument, aimed to precisely address a number of shortcomings in your presence, in person, for viewing directly. Today, there is no barrier, there are more than filter, there is more than sailing, as everything is in you, you are yourself the pendulum, you are all the tarot arcana and you are all the astrological signs. What is happening is not about this world and yet occurs on this world. Silence. Voice, therein no question. Participant, for some time now, but it's not every morning, my eyes are recovering to make the wipers like that, eyes closed. Voice, for some time, it's not every morning, our sister's eyes are beginning to like the wipers. Participant, so the eyes are closed. Voice, but the eyes are closed. Participant, but it's just before waking. Voice, it's just before waking. Participant, because from the moment the consciousness sees it. Voice, from the moment when consciousness sees it. Participant, the process stops and I wake up. Voice, the process stops and she wakes up. Participant, so, I remember, I felt that it was an exercise that had been given by, I do not know if it was a friend or teacher Ram. Voice, she remembers that it was an exercise that was given either by a friend or by Amram. Participant, Ram Master. An exercise in what? Voice, to have eyes that leave, who make the trip as a wiper, right and left very quickly. Okay. This is a technique that is known in the West under other names, which is supposed to help eliminate some emotional trauma. Indeed, it was disclosed, some years ago, on a capacity to release some emotional engrams in you altogether. Voice, it just comes, she said, it comes spontaneously. Absolutely. Besides, I generally advise against the tarot and all kinds of questions there, just do not ask for an external review. I give you, but it is you who have to experience. Then of course, as stated by our sister before, it did not concern it directly, but some brothers and sisters who have questions in relation to this, and it is to them that I just address. Try to be spontaneous, try not to measure, try not to diagnose, try not to analyze. Just try to be true, and you will find that you no longer need or analysis, or oscillate, or of any related vision, astrology or tarot related. Please note, I do not mean by this that the tarot and astrology are harmful tools, on the contrary. But I'm just saying that you will not see the slightest utility from the moment of joy will be experienced. Again, this is true. From the moment you clearly perceive that some things are right for you more, and you'll have to decide, but do not compromise with the truth that you live in relation to any action whatsoever or any activity you lead. You need to agree totally with yourself. From there, it is this that decides, not to say the tarot, it's wrong, or it is no longer relevant. And generally, the more you are going to simplicity, you are more real. The more you lighten, the more you become light. You do not need no baggage, you do not need any knowledge, because knowledge is ignorance. As always, your experience and your experience to guide you in your choices, your decisions, not an outside opinion, be it mine, be it that of the tarot, astrology, regardless. The answer is in your heart, even if you do not live joy. Flush out there inside of you, you know, you've simply forgotten, or you simply ignored. But it is already there, it never disappeared. There is also a new form of spontaneity, which has nothing to do with vision, intuition, or clairvoyance, but that has to do directly with the intelligence of the light. Silence. Beloved, let us continue. Participant, I just want to complete in relation to my question. Voice, she wants to supplement her question. Participant, because here, we went to the tarot, and in fact what had really happened to me something very spontaneous, I did not choose to do. This is not an exercise I chose to do. It happens like that, some mornings, and just wanted to suddenly know what it corresponded. Voice, what she saw with her eyes that go from right to left very quickly, she wanted to know what it corresponded. Participant, it is a very spontaneous thing, is to say, it's not me who chose. Voice, it's not her that chooses, it's spontaneous, it's something. So if it is spontaneous, this corresponds, in the same way when it is something that is triggered by itself, necessary to eliminate certain emotions and grammes simply related to past experiences and experience of this life. And actually, it's a liberating appearance even if it is spontaneous. Thank you. However, I remind you that there are abnormalities of the eye movements called nystagmus, that they have nothing to do with the light. But that only a doctor can meet you there. Be seen if after these movements, you feel liberated from something or not. Voice, she says yes. Well, so you have your answer. Silence. Voice, there is still a little bit of time. Are there still questions? We can stop, beloved, as I have said, between 4:30 ET5. Yes, here, now I think we can stop. Then we stop. ABBA remains that you and I say to you after your break. So, right away. All ABBA, thank ABBA. Thank you.